As you grow up, you stop stumbling into adventure and you start creating it and cultivating it. So if you want adventure, you have to choose, I am going to live an adventurous life.
Welcome to the Spencer Whiteout podcast. Rated R.
Criminal charges, bro. Guess like we're avoiding the shark.
Yo, today turboneck day?
I'll give you a kiss. You give me your number.
That checked out a ton, dude. Tell me you felt.
We're Americans. We're the ones that are descendants from the 1776 musket-bearing motherfuckers.
Welcome back to the Spencer Whiteout podcast. In this final installment of the Matt Walker trilogy, we talk about our youthful invincibility, staying alive, chasing goodness, and much more. Let's dive in. I want to talk about your mind-blowing Instagram post.
Yep.
What you wrote really resonated with me, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people. And kind of like you were just saying about you and Rachel, dude, it's like we grow up and we kind of forget what it's like to fall in love or to be the dreamer and all this stuff that we kind of lose when we get older. And so your post really made me think and take account of some things. So why don't you read that for us?
If your most hopeful teenage self, full of all of your wild dreams and aspirations, met you today, would they be inspired or would they be disappointed? Would you look up to yourself? I've been asking myself this question a lot lately. I think it's a good way to check your heart and assess your priorities. Lately, I found the answer to be no. I don't think that young dreamer would feel hopeful if he saw me. So I've started to course correct, starting with little day-to-day things. I'm reminded how essential it is to be intentional with every action. Apathy is my worst enemy. I'm either consciously moving toward where I want to be or I'm losing ground. If you'd answer yes, why? If no, what could you do to change that? It's better to shift directions now than to look in the mirror in 20 years and be unrecognizable. I wrote that after my dreams died, and didn't pursue being the main character in a movie and got married and started a family and watched some of those like lofty, far out dreams fade away and settled into adulthood. And I became a business owner and an entrepreneur. And I was like seemingly successful in all of the right ways, making good money and have a healthy family. But something inside of me was like, I don't care that I'm succeeding in culture's perspective. I feel like I'm not succeeding. When I think about like my most passionate self, I was 15 years old. I had long hair. I was barefoot on a skateboard or a longboard because I couldn't really skate with you guys. And I dreamed about like what it would be to change the world. How do I change the world? What impact can I have on a world that's so much bigger than myself? And then I wasn't feeling like that person. I was just doing the 9 to 5. I was doing the day to day. And I posted that just as I was genuinely asking myself that question. Okay, so I don't feel like that dreamer. What does it take to begin to dream again?
Yeah. The joy of life sometimes just seems like it dies when we grow up. It's super hard, man. And so we try to ask ourselves that question, what does it mean to be an adult, but still hold on to that childlike wonder, zeal, and goodness.
Right. Like we're past the coming of age genre now. Like we already came of age. So what the heck do we do now that we've come of age?
Got to make another movie.
I know.
No, but for real, dude, it's crazy because when I watch Spaceways, I'm like, this is wild because I am literally out of the target demographic of this movie now. And I noticed you and I watching it, we're watching it through a different lens, dude. Yeah. We're like, oh, this reminds me of
been there.
Then.
I can look back on that.
And it's like, but at the time we were making the movie for us in the present. We're like, this is what we're going through. This is what we're doing now. Yeah. And it's like, man, I've changed so much and we've changed so much. And like some of the humor and stuff in Spaceways, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so like
so 18-year-old, so 17,
18, It's so ridiculous, but it's still good. And I think, it reminds us what it is like to be young. And I think my most pure youthful invincibility was when I found space. I was 18 years old and I remember driving with Jason Foster because we'd heard about this place and we had gotten like directions from a friend, but you know, it's not on Google Maps or whatever. Yep. So it's like we're just driving out there adventuring. And I rember it started to rain.
For us, yeah.
Started to rain, dude. And it was the first day that I had listened to the 1975. Dude, I literally burned a CD of theirs and put it in my Suburban truck. And we drove out there with the CD player and we're playing 1975. And I'm like, this band is really good. And we're listening and we're driving. And then we ended up getting there, you know, hopping the fence, climbing up onto the tower, and like the rain is happening and there's this electricity in the air. And we're like, is there going to lightning strike this tower? We're up on top of this metal tower and it's starting to be a thunderstorm, dude. And I remember overlooking everything and you just see the
all
clouds,
of the cities in the distance,
you see all the cities, and it was just incredible. And I felt like I was truly on top of the world.
Dude, I love that. The romantic, and not even romantic like in a relationship sense, but like romantic lifestyle of finding space that you had driving out there in the Mustang. And I mean, it was the same way for...
I don't remember if it was the Mustang or the Suburban.
Either way.
It was still cool. I still had the CD player. I was playing the music.
You had 1975 playing.
Yeah, that's all I remember.
Mine was a little less romantic. It was probably 2:00 in the morning. I was 16 years old. My first car was a minivan. It had 7 seats. I had not had my license long enough to drive anyone legally, but I had 6 other high schoolers in the car.
Was it pink?
The rims were pink. We spray painted the rims pink. And it was called, and on the back it said Swagon Wagon. So high school. And we had been told by that friend Avery that I mentioned about this place called Space. And so we just loaded up with a group of us and we went out to find it. All we knew was like the general area, 2:00 in the morning as we come over that final hill and you see the break in the clouds and you can see the top of the tower sitting up there. But it's like past this layer of trees. So you barely see it. And it's just that crazy, like you can feel your heart racing. I know I'm about to step into something new.
It's like Stranger Things, bro. You feel this like something great is right
exactly.
beyond.
We're stepping into the inside out. And so upside down, inside out. What is this, Pixar? And we pull over on the side of the road there and you're pushing through the bushes where you can't see anything. And it's like that moment that you push through that one pine trail that's there. And then you can just see this whole giant facility of wonder. I had so many adventures and memories that happened on that. I could literally tell endless stories just about what happened at Space when I was in high school. But one of my favorite ones was one of my first dates with Rachel. I knew there was a meteor shower coming and I wanted to be super romantic. I boiled some hot chocolate and put it in cooked. I don't know. Made hot chocolate. How do you do that? I made some hot chocolate and put it in some thermoses. That was pre-hydro flask days. And we got there. That was when the stairs had already been torn down. So I convinced this girl that barely knew me to climb up a rope on the side of this building with me while I had a backpack with hot chocolate and blankets. And we get up onto the tower. The meteor shower starts. I lay these blankets out on this super uncomfortable metal grate. Still wasn't comfortable with the blanket, but we were able to lay there and stay warm with each other's love and passion and the hot chocolate. And it was just amazing being able to watch a meteor shower. I mean, just endless shooting stars on top of space. You felt like you were in space. To me, space almost defined my youthful invincibility, as the term you used earlier, that like so much of my teenage years took place on that one actual location. That was where I grew up, at Space. And then I ushered in the era of adulthood by bringing my then future wife to Space. And that was like the next era of like, I grew up there and now I'm grown up here.
Yeah, but it was short-lived. I mean, you only took her there once.
One time.
And that was so tough, man, mourning the loss of Space. When this radio tower was torn down, it felt like the end of an era, like we just lost a pillar of our youth.
That was like the symbolic representation of growing up. Our youth died when Space died.
Yeah. It was so hard, man. Dude, because I was there when it was being demolished. I showed up with my crew to film on day one, and we literally see tractors and bulldozers destroying it,
tearing it apart.
And big trucks hauling big pieces away, dude. It was honestly like heartbreaking. I don't know, man. I was never the same since that one. I mean, I know people might think, oh, you know, it's kind of dramatic or whatever. It's just a building. But like, it's not just a building.
But it wasn't. That was where our childhood took place.
Yeah, and for me, there was that, and then there was when Warped Tour ended. I mean, both of those for me were just huge parts of my childhood, and when those were both ripped away, dude, both in 2018, I felt like a huge part of my young heart died, and I thought I would have both of those forever, And at the time, I knew they were really special and I did value them. It's not like, oh, you don't know what you got till it's gone or whatever.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that because I knew they were special. But I think had I known space was going to be destroyed, I probably would have visited there, so much more often. But I just thought I was going to have them forever. So I was like, there's no rush. But, at the same time, space to me always required a sense of reverence. And I only went there probably 4 times in my life. But you know what I mean? There was a sense of reverence where I was like, I don't want to just go here all the time because I didn't want it to lose its magic or something. And every time I went there, it felt like this really significant life moment. So I really treated it like that.
Absolutely magical. I was there a lot more than you. It just felt like home to me. Like when you're a little kid and you've got your tree fort, in the backyard, when you don't want to be around your parents and you need to escape, you get into that tree fort. Space was that for me growing up. That 16, 17, 18 years old, that when I needed to just get away, that was the place that I went. And so it became my escape.
Yeah. So we're talking a lot about just the loss of innocence and the loss of youth. And I think Space Waves is my most pure film, right? And it totally represents the childhood, and there's nothing, there's some real life struggles about growing up and all that, but it's pretty tame, all things considered. And I'm so glad that that was my first movie because the screenplays and the stuff I'm writing about nowadays, dude, it's a lot more serious and it definitely gets kind of bleak at times.
Yeah.
But
it's heavier.
It's just heavier. And I'm so glad to have had Space Waves as the first one. But, the stuff I'm writing about now, I have an upcoming screenplay that I'm working on called Classified. And it deals with this very topic, what does it mean to enter this next stage of life with all its trials and losses, but to remain whole? And so at 26, I felt myself radically changing, my interests, my values, the way I spend my time.
Yeah.
And the youthful pleasures and adventures are on the surface drying up. People get jobs, people have kids and they move away, and running around pushing shopping carts with friends in the middle of the night. It's not the same anymore, dude.
Yeah.
It's not.
We're post coming of age now.
I'm not going to say too much about that screenplay yet, but I will say I'll be exploring a loss of innocence. And I'm going to be exploring that extensively because I think there's a few things in life that once you lose, you can never get back. And there's a few things in life once you experience, you'll never be the same. And I want to be able to do a character study that shows a few characters each experiencing, the loss of a pillar of youth.
Yeah.
And showing how people deal with it, some healthy, some unhealthy. And that's going to be a very painful film. But I think there's going to also be a lot of light that peers through the clouds because I don't believe in a world without redemption. And I'm committed to showing the light and sharing the truth in every story I tell.
Come on.
Yeah. And I just want to make movies that can be a comfort for people like you and me who go through these things, who feel like
absolutely.
There isn't a movie that represents what does it mean to transition from this stage of life to the next stage of life.
Right, exactly. We romanticize these youthful seasons, but then we just skip ahead and forget about this how do I become an adult now? How do I still dream? How do I still feel young while growing up?
Yeah, because so many people grow up and they get old and they get boring, dude.
Yeah.
And I felt that. I'm like, I don't want to grow up because I don't want to be boring like all these adults. And you see all these people who are just going through the motions of life. And it's like, where's the passion? Where's the excitement? Where's the adventure? Where's the spontaneity? And it just doesn't exist for so many people that are, post 30 or whatever.
Well, that's exactly tying back to that Instagram post that we referenced. That's why I wrote that, because I realized, okay, I've gotten to this point that I've become the person that I said I wouldn't be, that I watched my innocence die, that I watched the youthful invincibility pass, and now I'm the guy that I never wanted to be. And so how do I change that? I think for every person that's different, and you're portraying that in your films. I literally just took the successful company that I was thriving in, making more than I had ever made before, but I felt like my soul was dying. I just sold my company. I packed up my house, and in 5 days, I'm driving across the country to move somewhere that I've literally never even visited because I want to experience adventure again. And because I don't want to be the person that settles. And I want to be able to tell my kids someday, like, hey, when I entered this moment that you're entering right now, I made a choice that I wasn't going to stay there. And I think that that is so crucial for every young adult in that moment to say, what does it look like for me to make sure that my life stays alive?
Dang, dude, that's so good. Man, that reminds me of one night Luke Reed and I were talking on the phone, and this guy's just full of wisdom.
So much.
Obviously. But we were thinking back about high school, and we were just kind of mourning that loss of youth. And I said, the golden era is over. I guess nothing lasts forever. And then Luke said, but that's what's sweet about it. I don't know. That just really stuck with me, and that hit me super hard. And that's the reason we can't squander our time, right? Because eventually it's going to run out. So we have to use it wisely, build something, create something, go on an adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just because you do get older, it doesn't mean that all pleasure and adventure is just sucked from your life. That only happens if you let it.
The older we get, the more effort it takes, right? Like the older I get, the more intention it takes. We talked about that in relationships. We talked about that in adventures. The reality is you have to intentionally go on an adventure. As you grow up, you stop stumbling into adventure and you start creating it and cultivating it. And you have to say, like, this is the culture that I want to live in, so I'm going to generate that myself.
Because you've experienced so many more things, you get further into your comfort zone because less things are new. Things aren't novel anymore.
Yeah.
And so you have to push yourself and be more intentional to go further outside that comfort zone.
Right, exactly. Because I'm not going to stumble into the first time that I tried something when I've been on Earth 20 years longer than I was in high school, you know? And so exactly like you're saying, it just takes more intent of like, I'm going to create first experiences.
Yeah. And really, there is new pleasures and new adventures and new meaningful moments that happen at every stage of life. And so to focus too much on the past and what we've lost can be really unhealthy and can be a real disservice to what's happening now. It's just like the theme of Space Waves. You know, it's about letting go of how things were, embracing how things are, and knowing that although times change, friendship and adventure can be found in every season of life.
So good. Say that one more time.
It's about letting go of how things were, embracing how things are, and knowing that although times change, friendship and adventure can be found in every season of life. And that's why before the thesis was friendship and adventure await in every season of life. And then I changed it because await seems... Await? Yeah. Obama 08. And before it was kind of like, oh, friendship and adventure await in every season of life. So they just kind of come to you and you just stumble into it. And then I was like, no, it's... friendship and adventure can be found in every season of life. It implies you have to find it. You have to look for it. And that's why people don't find it, because they're just so lazy.
So if you want adventure, you have to choose when you wake up, I am going to live an adventurous life.
Yeah. And I think another thing that I've been dealing with a lot lately, and it's a theme that I'm trying to put into this new screenplay that I'm writing, is that a loss of innocence does not equal a loss of goodness.
Yeah.
Because I think so many of us believe that when we grow up, oh, we've lost our innocence, whether it be purity / virginity / alcohol, or changing your beliefs and having your whole worldview or your religion change and your values rearranged. And also anger, right? Because when you're a kid, you throw fits or whatever. But when you get older, you realize you're capable of so much more anger and vengeance and revenge and all this stuff. And you're like, who even am I? Because once you've knocked down these different pillars of youth and you've entered into all these different territories that are so new and are so, quote, contaminated, you can totally just screw yourself over and get into the mindset of thinking, well, I lost this, I'll never get it back again. Therefore, I'm stained. Therefore, I've got that scarlet letter and I'm impure and I can never get it back. So whatever, let's just forget about the past and just settle into who I am now. And I'm not happy with who I am or where my life is going. And I've lost my goodness. So whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that on that same note, one thing that we just don't realize as we're growing up is that our dreams and our values and the things we want to pursue, all of that is allowed to evolve. And you're allowed to grow through that. Just because you experience something negative doesn't mean that you don't get to keep growing through that. And just because maybe your dreams change a little bit doesn't mean that they're dying. And it's one thing for your dreams to die and for you to just give up on that, but it's an entirely different thing to say like, okay, like maybe the world is not what I thought it was when I was living in youthful bliss. But just because it's not exactly what I thought it was doesn't mean that I can't still have a fulfilling life and I can't still chase these dreams that others might deem impossible. And so, I mean, I think about myself. And even just listening to that recording when I was talking about Rachel, like some of those dreams have grown or shifted or evolved. They're not the same as they once were. I used to think that like I was truly invincible and that I was so capable of everything to the point that it was that youthful invincibility that like, I'm going to be the one that changes the world myself. And as I've grown up, it's not that that's just completely wrong. But the reality was the way that I'm changing the world might differ a little bit. And that's not always a bad thing, as long as I can keep that zeal and that passion alive to say, like, I don't care that those things you just listed may have made me feel scarred, but they haven't killed me. And I can still power through all of those things, and I can still navigate through those seasons. And I mean, I think your screenplay is working through that like, just because I'm in that season doesn't mean that it's inherently bad. That's part of life. Life is not always the youthful dreams, but sometimes it is walking through seasons of hardship, and it is struggling, and it is being someone that I'm not always proud of so that I can have that redemption arc. That's exactly what we get right now, is the redemption arc of our friendship. And so I think that like every negative season presents the opportunity for redemption. And that's what you get to walk in and get to dream through and get to create in. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think this would be a good one to end on. I have this picture in my mind of, this metaphor where we're all happy young soldiers.
Yeah.
And we just get enlisted into the war of real life. And we're like, yeah, I want to go fight the bad guys and do the right things. And I'm going to be a hero. And then you go and you get on the boat and you get shipped off, and then you get dropped off on the beach, right? And everybody's just shooting at you, and you see people die, and you see people's limbs get blown off, and you go through all these horrors of war, and you start swearing like a sailor because life gets hard, right?
Yeah.
And there's all this bullish that's going down. And you're months and months and months and maybe even years in the trenches, and it's miserable, and you're sick, and you got dysentery, and everything is just falling apart. And there's no longer that romantic idea of, oh, killing the bad guys, winning the war, everything's all good. You see the horrors of life.
Yeah.
And then I think there's still so much goodness and purity, even though it looks different. I think there's goodness and valor and strength when you see somebody that goes, okay, I've seen all the horrors, all the evils, and I'm still continuing to fight on for what's right.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think about that quote. One of my life quotes is, I've seen the world and it gives me nothing. My only peace is Jesus. And I think about like, there can still be beautiful things in the suffering, and life doesn't have to end in the suffering, but you can trial through it. And so our encouragement to anyone that's actually listening right now is, just because you leave the season of innocence and just because you're stuck there doesn't mean that you have to give up, and doesn't mean that you have to stop dreaming. It doesn't mean this is the end. Tomorrow, the sun will rise and you can still choose to chase goodness despite where you're at. So do that and chase goodness.
I hope you guys enjoyed these episodes with Matt Walker as much as I did. And if you'd be so generous, please leave a rating/review. I'd really appreciate it. Those go a really long way in letting other people know that this is a podcast of value. Also, if you'd like to connect with me on Instagram, it's at Spencer Whiteout. And as always, stay tuned, stay hyped. That's a wrap.
Inserting exclusive audio recording from the vault.
The difference between absent love and intentional love.
I just made those two things up on the spot. No one's ever said that before. I just made it up.
Oh man.
Absent love, dude. Absent love is like based on my mood and my circumstances and like the happenings in life. Like if everything aligns perfectly, if the stars align today, then I'll love you. But if I have to wash my hair, I'm not gonna love you. Like if anything gets in the way, it's like, But intentional love is like, anything in the world could happen right now to get in between us, but there is nothing that I wouldn't like climb over. No barrier that could stop me from loving you. Like if frickin' the whole world started falling apart, I would still choose to get up today and love you. I don't know. I don't think love is real until it's intentional. Otherwise, it's a fleeting feeling. And I don't want a love that exists in that manner. I want a love that says, I'm going to choose to love you every single day, and I'm going to choose to inconvenience myself for the sake of serving you. Love is like service, dude. It's servitude. Is that a word, servitude?
Yeah.
Love is servitude.
Yeah.
Dude.
Serve a dude.
Serve a dude. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be two people deciding to love each other. It's not two people falling in love, because at some point you're going to fall out of love because a mood is going to change, or a feeling is going to change, or a negative circumstance is going to happen today. Your kid's going to die. You lose your house. You go bankrupt. Crap happens. If your love is situational, your love isn't really there at all. It's absent.
Yeah.
You have to choose to say, like, no matter the circumstance, no matter the happening, no matter the situation, I'm going to choose to put you first today. Above my feelings, above my mood, above the world, above everything. I bless you. It's like when King David would be like, dude, in so many Psalms, he just says like, I bless you. My soul blesses you. That's like the song, Bless My Soul. Mm-hmm. But like the reason why that exists is because David would say like, I bless you with all of my soul, that it's my desire and my longing to go out of my way to bless you and to treat you well and to speak highly of you, to serve you. That's what love's supposed to look like. And the only way that it looks like that is when two people get up every single day and choose to love each other. Love is conditional until Jesus gets in the middle of it. And then it becomes unconditional.
Mm-hmm. And that's it.